Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about this very large monster snowstorm, and this thing has a lot of impacts with it. I've said this before already in yesterday's video. This thing will be the biggest winter storm thus far of the season, not just 2022, but the first kind of half of winter in 2021. Not just for the areas that are going to be impacted by this, but just overall. This thing is going to be affecting millions of people with heavy snow, potentially crippling ice, and potentially severe weather as well. Not to mention the other impacts like the bitter cold air behind this system and the extremely warm air out ahead of this storm. So yes, there's a ton of stuff to cover. I realistically won't be able to go over every single city, region, or state, whatnot. I'll just be showing you the different models and where the difference still lies, because you've been probably hearing a lot about this storm on social media, the news, whatever, the weather channels, but this thing is still not 100% figured out. It will be occurring, that's no doubt about it. It will be significant. It will be definitely, again, the biggest one of the year thus far, but there's still a lot of things that are iffy. But let me show you what I do know. Let me show you what I'm less confident on, and we'll just go from there. If you are a new viewer to this channel, I just want to say hello and welcome. I'm a weather hobbyist, right? I'm a weather enthusiast. This is a channel about just me talking about the weather. People like to kind of put their comments or thoughts down below, so I encourage you to do that. Just ask any questions, and if you like this, again, consider subscribing and liking the video. If you don't know, again, obviously watch the video first. I just say this now, not at the end, because I always forget at the end. I get too carried away with the weather. Okay, let's start talking about this, as again, we have a lot of stuff to go over. First off, let me just show you, since I'm already on this, the National Weather Service forecast of snowfall. Now, this may look like a model, right? Because usually I display snowfall amounts like from models in this similar format, but there's this cool feature on here that you could see National Weather Service predicted snowfall, and notice that this is what they think will be occurring. And again, the less further out this is, the more accurate, because they do have some already amounts posted for these areas, but there's a lot of blanks here. If it's blank like this, kind of some areas putting in some snow, some not, that means that they're unconfident. But as we get closer, we'll see these snow amounts getting filled in, as there probably will be some snow here. So what we are confident in relatively is that North Dakota, you can see portions of Minnesota, will be seeing decently heavy snow out of this. I could say very heavy snow, 8 to 12. I would say there are many locations that could get well north of a foot across portions of Minnesota and into Iowa. I do think that several areas will be reaching that foot plus mark, especially if it is colder than anticipated and those snowfall ratios are a bit stronger. Also banding, meaning that we have localized bands of very heavy snow. Those amounts could top those foot plus easily. Notice that we do have a tight gradient, and that's really the nightmare with this system. Notice how all the areas that were yesterday in a winter storm watch are not all in a winter storm warning. There were a lot of counties here in western Iowa under winter storm warning that are now just in an advisory. And just to demonstrate, this is all along this whole band into the United States and Midwest, but I'm just going to zoom in on one area, and you can see what the gradient is, right? I mean, you go from 7 to 11 in this this yellowish color, 6 to 9, it can up to, 8 to 12 is official key here, but just a little bit further towards the east, and you get 2 to 4, 1 to 3, and it's off. So again, and they're making that clear. The area highlighted is very uncertain whether or not this, again, storm drifts a little west or east. It's a bit uncertain, and it also means whether or not this is further towards the west or east, the impacts for the southern areas and the eastern areas. Because if you don't, if you remember, this thing's gonna take a track like this with the heaviest snow kind of aligned along where I drew that. Again, there are differences, especially for this part of the storm in the south, but we are starting to get this area honed in and a bit more accurate with our data being more high res and versus relying on long range models, kind of where it's further out across the east. So let's track this for you, shall we? Because this thing is, again, a beast, and it's definitely worthy of doing so. So let's see. This is a herd model, and I want to explain each model that I show you. So this one goes out to 18 hours, and every 6 hours it goes out to 50 hours. I don't have the most recent run that goes out to 50 hours, as the oldest one is a bit out of date at this point. So I'll just show you the first 18 hours of the storm. So this will be a good showing of what will be happening across the northern plains. Notice that today by 9 p.m. it's spilling into North Dakota, right? And by the time we reach 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, it's South Dakota, North Dakota, really already reaching northern Iowa by the time it's 2 to 3 a.m. So this thing's quick. It's like a spear. I mean, literally, it's spearing into the United States from Canada. Notice that we'll be bringing, and it already is bringing snow for Saskatchewan and into portions of Manitoba, but it's abandoning or kind of releasing its grip from those areas by the time the early morning comes. But again, you could see it is barreling towards the United States and the southern kind of portion of, I mean, the central Midwest. It will be reaching the southern Midwest by really the end of day tomorrow. And notice this is 5 o'clock in the morning, right? I mean, that's already a pretty big difference from what it looks like right now, which is nothing. So we're pretty much, as I'm recording this, on the eve of this system. Let me just go through this quickly. Notice 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And then by 11 o'clock in the morning, not afternoon, morning, Twin Cities, you're seeing snow. You could be actually nearing the end of it by 1 to 2 p.m. as this is a bit earlier out. You know, whether or not this stretches into areas like Chicago suburbs or Milwaukee, I know I have viewers from there, the Quad Cities, you know, whether or not, again, this drift, the National Weather Service mentioned that, and I know I'm getting into this painfully precise detail, but this is so important because I'm not here just to show you there's a storm coming, get prepared. You could go on the news app on your phone and check that out. I go in a bit more of a detail here, and that's why if you have any questions, ask them, and I'll do my best to answer them. But the thing is with this little guy is that these are Alberta clippers. I mean, this is an Alberta clipper. They are notorious for being extremely easy to kind of miscalculate. They often either overperform, underperform in strength, but not only that, they also, in this case, they also you know, they shift sometimes a little bit towards the west, a little bit towards the east. Even while it's occurring, the models don't catch up on it, and this thing, you know, it's not going to hit Michigan, but a few miles this way, few miles that way. Look at the scenario that this HER model paints. While, albeit this is a pretty far eastern scenario compared to some of the other models, areas like Sioux City, Nebraska, right, the National Weather Service has many of these areas picking up around, if you recall, 1 to 3, 2 to 3, 2 to 5 inches, right, in this area. And if you were to take a look at this, I mean, you barely get even a few hours of snow if a scenario like this were to occur. But you would pick up some because as the system drops down, it spreads some snow into Nebraska. It would be like a scenario like this. It's just a little bit of a deviation towards the east. You pick up a lot less and a lot more for areas that are more on the western or northeastern periphery of the system. So again, that is that. I want to show you how much snowfall will be falling just through tomorrow 11 a.m. Notice a lot of snow. That stripe is very narrow, especially on that southern side. That gradient is much tighter. And yeah, it's going to be falling heavily. Even though it's a clipper, this thing is a powerful clipper. A very, very, very powerful storm in terms of the snowy side, obviously. And that's just the first part. Let's go to a global model. You can see pretty in line with what the HER model shows. Again, cities like Sioux City may not even pick up snow up until tomorrow in the afternoon. Notice that it does overspread eventually. But then by that time, 6 p.m., this thing is snowing area-wide, statewide across Iowa, wrapping up across the Twin Cities, spreading into Illinois, maybe even Chicago picking up some snowflakes out of this. That's the thing. There has been an eastward trend lately. You know, whether or not that will just stop and the models kind of have honed down their final track for this, or this will continue drifting east, or it might just honestly drift towards the west. I'm saying that because those are all possibilities. But again, I guess that type of speculation is not worth it unless you live on those periphery cities and, you know, you want to know whether or not you could see nothing versus some light snow. But, yeah, the thing with this system is that, you know, the areas, Iowa, Minnesota, you'll pick up snow out of this. There's a pretty much a guarantee for that. Kansas City, you're on that western periphery, but still probably snow. Notice Illinois, Iowa getting out of that snow by Saturday morning. So if you have weekend plans across the Midwest of any kind, say mainly Iowa, Minnesota, even northern Missouri, by 12, you know, by Saturday, it's mostly done. Obviously, the cleanup only begins then, and cold air does rush in. It's, you know, it does start abating. Now, you may be wondering, why am I spending so much time on this first part of the storm? And that is because we don't have that much confidence on the second part, but we do have about this first part. So obviously, I want to, tell you what I do know about this first part, especially since I have more chances of being correct about this first part than the second part, and that it's less further out. So again, by this time frame, so Saturday, it's done. That first part of the system is done, but we are just beginning the second part. That by itself is a pretty nasty storm, dropping quite a bit of snow. Again, many locations probably reaching over the double digits. Even some, again, I do think will be over 12 inches. Whether or not it's Des Moines, Iowa, over the foot mark, it's hard to tell. At this point, I would say 8 to 12 inches is possible. Notice there are, again, many locations that aren't in that pink, and they're just kind of in that 3 to 5 inch range, which is still a decent snowfall. Now, this is where things get even more interesting. Again, I'm just showing you one model, right? So this may not exactly happen like this model shows. That means, instead of Arkansas seeing snow, the European may show it's not seeing snow. And that's a pretty big difference, even though they all show that storm. And I'm not saying that that's actually what they show. They disagree on Arkansas. I'm just using it as an example of how even if they take the exact same track, sometimes the models just show different dynamics with the storm. But notice that by 6 p.m. Saturday, so it's done with the Midwest. It's into Missouri, into Arkansas. It's raining across much of the Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. It's starting to rain, across the foothills of North Carolina, Asheville, right, the Appalachians. And notice, this converts into snow. And we have this lot of cold air down here driving into these areas. So places like Georgia, Atlanta, you may start off as rain. Maybe not Atlanta, but just a bit north. But it may reach even in Atlanta. You will start off as rain, heavy rain, but you will eventually convert over to snow. And this is just a mess. I mean, take a look at that, right? Just let me zoom in on this. This is 6 a.m., so early Sunday morning. At least it's occurring on a Sunday, this mess. So that's slightly better. But notice, Mississippi potentially seeing heavy snow. Tennessee, heavy snow. Southern Kentucky. Again, it just went out of Arkansas, dropped quite a bit of inches right there. I'll show you in just a second. Notice it's snowing into Georgia, into western Tennessee now, Kentucky, Lexington, into West Virginia, into portions of North Carolina. And as we get towards the afternoon now of Sunday, you could see it's mainly snow. Now we start getting cities like Charleston, Cincinnati, maybe getting a bit of snow, but really areas south and east most likely seeing the heaviest of that. And I'll show you, because some models show this further north, so cities like Columbus may get a lot more, and some like the GFS show it further south, showing just a bit of snow for the Columbus area. Notice Maryland, right? Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, starting off as maybe a bit of snow, transitioning over to rain. Pittsburgh getting the brunt of this. Into New York, the state New York City, mainly starting off as snow, but then I should say mainly transitioning into rain. Notice that we do have a lot of very heavy snow. These are intense bands, and this is not a really quick moving storm. It's not just one that completely zoots off. It's a slow moving beast. And notice New Hampshire, Vermont, away from the immediate coast, could pick up a lot of snow. Now, my friends in Canada, right? Toronto, you get a little bit depending on exact track of this. Ontario, Montreal, Ottawa, the cities further up the St. Lawrence kind of valley area, and the immediate river, if you will, you will be seeing a lot more snow out of this, especially cities like Quebec. Now, Maine, again, picking up a lot of snow out of this, interior portions of Maine, away from the coast. That's the thinking right now. Let me show you the snowfall amounts. Again, these are pretty extreme. Okay, so don't get too carried away by some of this, but notice there's our first side, which again, 8 inches is a lot of snow, let alone over a foot. Notice that some of these amounts over here are a bit spotchy. I do think these are a bit underplayed, but a general 3 to 6 inches across northern Arkansas, Tennessee, maybe even to Mississippi, some 2 to 4 inch amounts are possible. Into Georgia. By the way, if you look at this, you're seeing over a foot across North Carolina and Virginia. Some of that is ice, so it won't be as high. This is the fallacy kind of the GFS total snowfall. It does say it includes sleet, right? But it's a way too high of a snowfall total there. But as you get into West Virginia, Northern Virginia, especially where it borders Virginia and Kentucky, these areas will be in the brunt of this very heavy snow, and that those amounts seem plausible, especially if it's colder, over a foot, definitely expected. And yeah, A massive system is on its way. And by the way, a lot of these areas in the coast are that's a bit too much snow, assuming that the track is consistent with what the GFS shows. Let me now just show you different models. I won't show you the whole entire system because the general timing with, when this arrives is similar, but I want to show you. So this is the GFS. Notice, pick your city, pick your area. Notice Columbus on the cusp of seeing heavier and lighter snow. Cleveland, really with this scenario, not seeing much. And look at this. Look at the Canadian scenario, right? Okay, look at this. So we see a lot more snow into Missouri, decently accurate, or sorry, decently agreeing with the GFS. But notice it shows a lot, like a stripe of very heavy snow right there, especially into Mississippi, even Louisiana. So the Canadian shows a bit more snow towards the south. It doesn't show as much into Virginia or North Carolina. Keeps it away from the coast by quite a big margin. Still, cities like Charleston, Pittsburgh, you're into that. You're getting slammed by this. Upstate New York as well. But notice, cities like Columbus seeing a bit more out of the Canadian scenario. Cities like Cleveland potentially seeing up to 6 inches with this. So you see the thing, right? Even though they all show a big storm, relatively similar timing and track, obviously, for Pittsburgh, Charleston, this difference isn't big because they're kind of in a bullseye either way. But Cleveland, I mean, they go from maybe picking up 2 to 3 inches with this scenario to over 6 inches with the Canadian, which is a big difference. And then notice this one brings a lot more snow to cities like Toronto. I do also want to note that this is something important. There is obviously, if you saw on a radar, a massive system that will be occurring across the Northeast before this guy right here. Maybe like, what's this guy right here? This thing is moisture laden. It will miss the Northeast, thankfully, most likely. Maybe bring a bit of snow to Cape Cod, but it will slam most portions of Canada and extreme portions of the coastal Maine. This thing is a cyclone. I mean, 958 millibars, extremely heavy snow. And I'm bringing this up because I don't know if I have many viewers from this area, but if I do, many of these areas could pick up over a foot and a half of snow. But look, just a few days after the system abates, here, look at this. We have that system bringing the rainy side to those areas. So some flooding, ice jams, whatever, that could definitely be concerning, even into Maine, as so much snow falling followed by such a potent rain system. It's just not good. A flash freeze may occur. Some of that melts. Those cold temperatures come swooping in behind. So, that's definitely something to be worried about. Now, again, let's go to another model. Let me just show you, let's just see how the European model plays this system out. Again, there's our first side of it. Notice the European has been consistently a more westward scenario. So cities like Sioux Falls, Sioux City, a bit more, according to the European model, they pick up a bit more. But, cities like Minneapolis on the other side of the system, on the northeast side, pick up a bit less. Again, there's that massive cyclone across the northeast. I mean, though, that's insane. If this were just 100 miles more inland, that would be scary. Seriously. It is scary because it is occurring, but thankfully not as many people live up here as down across these major metropolitan areas. So it's not even a bias of, country or area. It's, literally just population. People live there, just not nearly as much if this system were to beeline right into the coast. That's a statistical fact. Okay, let's take a look at this Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, right? Similar to what the GFS shows. Notice Kansas City picks up a bit more with this. The European really likes to show a pretty heavy snow band right there for a few hours on late Saturday into Missouri. Notice what this one does. It brings snow all the way into Oklahoma, much more westward oriented. What does that mean? More snow into Arkansas, not just the northern portion of the state, but more of the central and kind of central eastern side, not just the northwest tip. And then notice some snow into maybe Louisiana. Regardless, though, it does seem like the brunt of this. Look at this. Tennessee, northern Mississippi. Again, similar timing. This is early Sunday, so at least the timing is decent. It's on a weekend, not like a Monday or whatnot. Notice very heavy snow across Tennessee, the Carolinas. A band of potentially crippling ice as well. Hopefully it's not that bad, but some of these areas could be under a ice ban for several hours. Again, very interesting, but Georgia, northern Alabama, you may start off as rain, eventually transition over, or, kind of a rain, snow, sleet mix, transition to some rain, and then to a band of heavy to moderate snow. Notice Kentucky picks up some snow, Ohio, as this thing traverses up. Notice in terms of track, it's more towards the north compared to the GFS model, right? If you recall, the GFS did not bring much snow to Columbus and Cleveland. This one does, more of what the Canadian shows. What that means is for areas in Virginia, that could mean a bit less snow for you as that rain snow line creeps up on you. Same thing as Washington, D.C., New Jersey. Most likely, either way you put this, New Jersey is out of this in terms of a big event. Philadelphia, though, could definitely get a few hours of very heavy snow followed by some rain. That would obviously not melt all the snow, so that's definitely something to watch for. If you pick up 6 inches by the time it starts converting to rain, which, that seems extreme, 6 inches compared to what they're forecasted right now, which is nothing. With such heavy snowfall rates, it's definitely possible. You'll be left with like a 3.5 inch of just slush, which, I guess there's your snow day. But notice this thing does traverse up the coast, and it does bring snow into cities like Toronto, just barely though. Those heavy bands not necessarily reaching your area. Into up the Canadian major cities, also seeing snow, and then that system is gone. In terms of total snowfall, guys, this thing is, again, very similar in terms of magnitude to what all the other models show. I think these areas are underdone significantly. There will be probably many areas overfoot. Here, again, it's you can see how it kind of weakens and then re-strengthens. We'll have to see if this occurs a bit stronger. There will be more snow. If it's a bit less, there will be less snow. But less snow even into Tennessee and Mississippi. But look at that, northern Mississippi potentially inches, it's 5 to 6 inches of snow. Tennessee, most of Tennessee are absolutely getting walloped by this. Nashville, Memphis, it's a tough call right there, kind of on a border. We'll have to wait and see what exactly occurs there. Northern Georgia, Atlanta, maybe not inches of snow, but there could be definitely snowflakes, probably coatings of 1 to 2 inches. And notice again a widespread track of very heavy snow. Look what they do right there. Some of these models paint ridiculous amounts, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, which if I look at the GFS, and just for comparison, you could see it does a similar kind of feature right there, those very heavy amounts. Assuming the correct snowfall ratios, which this will be probably a bit more accurate, you can see it shows a lot more snow. I think that's accurate. I don't know if 17 inches will fall, but I think there could be some amounts reaching 13, 14 inches. Notice these amounts are a bit more realistic because the snow will be very wet and heavy here. But up here, look at that. Some areas over 30 potentially right by the lakes. Buffalo, Rochester, not out of the question, guys. And do note that with the GFS, while the Kuchera increases snowfall for the colder, drier areas across Tennessee, that this will be a wet snow. It won't be a 10-to-1 ratio. So the 10-to-1 ratio may show 7, 8 inches across northern Georgia, but if you really estimate it correctly, it will be less. It will be the same amount of precip. It will just be a heavier, wetter snow, because that's really what it will be occurring in. So yes, that's basically what we have. A massive storm, massive system. I hope I gave you guys a good background kind of feedback on what the differences still are. Cities like Sioux Falls may get kind of dipped from this. Maybe Minnesota, Minneapolis could get a lot more, a lot less. Obviously, this thing's gonna occur. This thing's gonna be massive. So if you live across portions of Iowa, for example, don't worry about this thing shifting a bit, especially if you're in a bullseye. Look at your local National Weather Service. If you live in Fort Dodge and you're like, well, I get missed. No, even if the shifts by several counties, you will be fine. Same thing right here, or I should say different story across the edges. This may impact you negatively or positively. If you're right there in that little warning area, right on the cusp of that, you're expected around 3 to 6 inches. If this shifts towards the east, you'll probably end up with closer to 4 through 3, maybe not 5, a bit less. And then if you live across these areas, if it's a westward shift, you will end up with less or more, vice versa. It's a tough situation. These areas as well, they already have winter storm watches, but and you do have forecast snow accumulations. You can see less than 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3. This is still preliminary. Get ready for obviously snow, but if this system is a bit stronger, it could be those yellow amounts could be across much of northern Arkansas, or they could be really minimalized. Same thing with Kansas City. Right now, you're expected around, I think, 3 to 4, 2 to 3. Yes, this could significantly increase, especially if it's a more westward track for your cities. You're still gonna see snow, just maybe a bit less or more depending on this. Notice this area of Carolinas, both northern and southern, and Georgia, seeing already winter storm warnings. They're pretty high in terms of that significant snow accumulation potential. Expected snowfall, they do not have that official winter forecast yet. They do call for heavy snow, obviously, for the mountains. 12 to 20. It's a massive event for the mountains. Even for the lower elevations, 8 to 12. Cities like Pittsburgh, you're probably going to be the center of this storm, and a lot of people are in these areas, getting kind of excited about this. But again, they don't really mention anything here because it's still too far out. They're mentioning that there's going to be snow likely, but yeah, they're just being a bit, careful with this, and you can see that they're kind of saying that, get ready, guys, this could be pretty bad, but we're just not issuing snowfall amounts just yet. But again, if I were to make a preliminary estimate, this could be a major storm. So yes, basically that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Get ready for this system. Check in with the local National Weather Service. I'll be making a video tomorrow up until the system is over with. I'll be updating you about this and, you know, what changes. Because if tomorrow at this time I'm recording this video and we know that the system dropped a lot more snow into Minneapolis, right, versus Sioux City, then we could assume that there will be definitely changes across some of these forecast areas as that system has a different track. Or vice versa, more snow across Sioux City. You know, the cutoff will be, or, you know, Kansas City will see more probably. Same with Arkansas. Or it may just not move at all, which would be the good scenario where a lot less confusion would occur. Do note that there are winter storm watches for that massive cyclone across Maine. These areas could pick up a decent amount of snow, to say the least. I think these are still, some of these are underplayed with those snowfall rates. So yeah, stay safe, stay tuned, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya, guys. Bye.